Hi everyone, welcome to the second episode of the FIXPod. My name is Rick. I'm joined here with Scott Charity and Jim Kay, both representatives of the FIX trading organization. So guys, we're here today. Some questions for you. I think a lot of people are interested to know a little bit more about FIX, a little bit more about the industry. So FIX in general is a very broad term. So from your perspectives, what is your definition of FIX?
So, if I may start with that, there are two uses of FIX in kind of common usage, if you like. One is the FIX protocol, which is kind of where we started. And FIX protocol is, of course, a way of describing messages that are used for electronic trading and other purposes between industry participants. And the other one is the FIX trading community, which is the organisation which looks after all of that. And the organisation is essentially an industry association. We are an industry association and a standards body at the same time. We maintain a suite of standards, including the FIX protocol. We also maintain a community that is there to develop those standards, to explore what needs to go into them, and to encourage adoption and education throughout the industry.
Cool, thanks Jim. Anything to add, Scott, from your side?
Only as well, the FIX produce a lot of best practice guides, which are commonly used across the industry, like a best execution when they come around with MiFID II.
Cool, thank you very much. So you mentioned there, Jim, two aspects of it, right? It's like the technology and then also the organization. So could you maybe just shed some light a little bit more about the technology, how it actually works? Like when we talk about FIX in terms of tech, what does that mean?
So the FIX protocol is basically, it's like a blueprint for how to design systems that talk to each other. And so we actually don't ourselves own any technology. There's an industry out there which builds things based on that blueprint. And there are hundreds of firms who've built technology used by thousands of firms to send probably billions of FIX messages a day to communicate with each other. And that can be across market data. So FX quoting, for example, is a big sort of user of FIX messages, all the way through to trading, which is kind of where FIX really came from, across virtually every asset class there is in financial services, all the way down to a long way through the post-trade suite. So it's used pretty much everywhere for pretty much everything.
By everyone, I'm assuming.
By everyone, globally.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool. And Scott, I guess from your perspective, how would you describe then the organization, the kind of goal, I guess, of what the aims are, what people are trying to achieve in FIX?
Well, I think the organisation is split into many different pieces, but it all comes under the same umbrella, whereby you've got the working groups which are working not only on best practice, but actually trying to tangibly answer some quick changes that are happening in the industry, in innovative stuff, as well as regulatory changes. And that then comes under the umbrella or feeds into changing of the protocols, which Jim said, so organisations can communicate with each other.
Cool. In that standardized way, right?
In that standardised way.
Cool. Yeah. Excellent. And so you guys, how long have you been in the industry exposed to FIX?
Well, I got involved with FIX about 25 years ago when I first got into electronic trading. This organisation was just being set up at the time. FIX protocol had been around for a few years and was just really beginning to get mass market adoption, particularly between equities brokers and their clients. So all the way through there, and of course seen a sort of evolution of FIX into other asset classes and other functions as well during that period.
Cool.
For myself, I've been working in the industry for 30 years, and I've been working with FIX probably about 12 to 14 years on and off those first 2 years, because we was working as a community. I went to FIX asking them about how we could answer some of the questions with MiFID II. They then involved me in some of the working groups, allowed me to participate in writing up the documentations for the working groups, and then we fed that into the organisations that we're working for at the time. So, and since then, and since MiFID II really, it's been a work in progress because of all the information that we've been changing via the regulations, and FIX has been working on, not only for pre-trade or trading, but also for post-trade, like Jim touched on earlier on. We've done a lot of work internally and externally on those changes to the protocol and the regulations as a whole.
Cool, very cool. So, I mean, you guys must have a wealth of knowledge and experience dealing with FIX, but also seeing it evolve. So, from your perspectives, back when you first started and it was a new concept to where we are now in 2025, how have you seen FIX, the industry, and or the technology evolve since then?
It's a great question, because what you get is a little bit of a kind of story of how trading's evolved over the last 30 years. And the early days of FIX as an organisation and the FIX protocol were very much trying to, I guess, kind of persuade a fairly reluctant industry to work together on standardising something where the participants all felt they had some kind of commercial edge in diverging.
Mm-hmm.
And it took, I think, quite a leap of faith from industry participants to do that. And the organisation, which was made up of those people, did a very good job of kind of convincing itself, if you like, that was the right way to go. And once you kind of got past that point, it got into more of a just add more features for more types of trading. Type of development cycle, if you like, and it did that for probably about 15 years just by doing that, adding more functionality for different parts of the trade cycle, program trading, things like that got added in, more asset classes and more features around that. I think what Scott was referring to there was a really interesting inflection point with MiFID, where we realised that the organisation could not just do that. In fact, almost had a duty not just to do that, but to use the people it had in its membership and the processes and the infrastructure that the organisation provides to solve much bigger industry problems than simply trying to sort of commercialise electronic trading or similar. And I think MiFID was a great case study in terms of how you can bring people together from across the industry. This is one thing that's unique about our organisation, is it is every part of the industry is represented. To take something like a regulatory problem like MiFID and all the various manifestations and solve it for the industry, basically come up with the blueprints, the designs, the best practices for people to solve particular things in single common ways. And the good news is, for us, not necessarily for the industry, is that the requirement has not gone away. I mean, MiFID's obviously getting looked at again. Other regulations are out there all over the place. This is a kind of continuous process now, and we've realised that our role, if you like, in our mission is to support the industry, adopt change, even if it's coming from outside, if it's coming from the regulators. By doing so, we can help the industry implement those changes in a safer and faster and cheaper way, which I think in this environment everyone would agree is an essential thing.
That's also why I use the word community, because as FIX evolved from, let's say, brokers and banks almost competing against each other, but then to work as a whole to answer specific questions, it gradually got more of a momentum, and it grew and grew and grew. And the events also grew to share the information, and the events are almost a key feature of what actually FIX is doing, because that community comes together and we can talk about what's happening and what's on the agenda now and what's coming up in the future. So we can almost roadmap it, not only for FIX, but for the industry as a whole.
Yeah, and creating that collaboration, again, as you say, looping in the regulation perspective, not just the actual bread and butter of the industry itself.
Yes, absolutely.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
I always think of FIX as more of a boat. Everyone's getting on the boat and we're all rowing the same way down the river, and more people just get on the boat and we keep rowing together, and we're all helping each other to answer the things that need to be answered.
Yeah, makes sense. And the boat gets stronger because you've got more people, more hands to help maintain, develop and grow.
Yeah, and everyone's knowledge base gets bigger as well. So it's a learning curve for everyone who's in the boat, and actually part of FIX and part of the events and part of the community.
Makes sense. So you always want to try and get more people on the boat.
Yeah, especially and I guess this boat analogy is great, because when you get into people like Scott and I, sooner or later we're going to get thrown out of the boat. And either we will voluntarily offboard the boat, or we will get chucked out of the boat by our managers. But we have to have that kind of throughput of new people coming through, which is why the next gen work we're doing, part of this, for example, is so important. We need to make sure that we've got newer people coming through to basically take over from what we do.
And that leads me on to my next point, actually. So from your perspective, where do you see FIX going? What is the future, both from maybe the organizational perspective, but also the technology? I think people will be interested to know
and the
what
knowledge
the mission
base.
is.
Let's not forget the knowledge base.
Exactly.
As the knowledge base gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and those people, as the community, they get more and more involved. They're all learning and everyone's working the same way. It's only going to go one way.
Sure.
But I interrupted your question, sorry.
No, all good.
So I think let's just break that down a little bit. In terms of the standards themselves, we would be complacent to think that FIX in its current form is going to be around in its current form forever, and we have to work with other industry standards organisations to make sure that the industry as a whole has one set to work with. So we work very closely with ISO 20022, we work closely with FPML, for example, and we kind of if you like, interoperate with these various standards. And our objective, and I think we have a mutual objective here, is to make sure that you can kind of implement whatever works for you and your infrastructure in a way that works seamlessly with other things. So it's kind of like the standard of standards, if you like. So that's kind of where we are on the kind of technological standards perspective. Organisationally, I think more of the same, in all honesty. It's a pattern that's worked very well over the last 30 years. We've seen no reason why it wouldn't work over the next 30 years and possibly even beyond. It's just a question of making sure that we are able to bring people into the organisation who can kind of, pick up the baton, if you like, and run with it, knowing they've got the support of an infrastructure that kind of will help them do that, and that the industry's there and ready to take what they have to say.
And help Fix evolve. Because to Jim's point, Fix needs to evolve. It needs to be able to be used for fixed income markets more. It needs to be used for carbon markets for. The crypto market that everyone talks about, it will be used for institutional stuff for that as well. So it needs to be lined up the dominoes in preparation for all of those big things that will be coming.
Sure. Well, guys, I really appreciate the time. Thanks a lot for joining me here, Scott and Jim.
Thank you.
Appreciate your insights about Fix. Both from the tech side and also the organisation perspective. So thanks a lot for joining. I've been your host, Rick, and looking forward to more FIXPod episodes in the future.